Real GM Radio is brought to you by Prize Picks. Mo Dakhil is with me today. We're going to talk about a bunch of NBA topics, including who we like to come out of the Eastern Conference. Probably talk about last night's Cavs win over the Knicks. I'm going to ask him if he believes in the Pistons as much as I do. And then we're going to whip around the Western Conference, talk about how the Nuggets can make the finals, and a few more forward-looking things that I'm excited to get his thoughts about. Let's jump in. All right, Mo Dakhil is here to help me run through a bunch of NBA topics. We're going to talk about both conferences here today, but I want to start with the East, specifically, Mo, last night's game between the Knicks and the Cavs, because I think if you did a poll, most people would still have one of these two teams coming out of the Eastern Conference. We could talk about the Pistons and the Celtics, maybe some of these other teams, but that said, the Knicks, up and down, I think is the best way to describe their season. The Cavs, down and trending up. They got a really good win over the Knicks last night. They're playing as well as anybody right now. They're 20-7 since Christmas. They have the best record in the league over that stretch. A lot of attention right now being paid to James Harden, but they've been playing well for quite some time now, dating obviously back to before the trade deadline. When you're watching this Cavs team play, what do you like about what you're seeing from them lately?
Well, I think just the vibe shift has sort of happened. What was the Jaylen Brown tweet years ago? Remember, like the vibe switched or something, or
Yeah.
something. What it's along those lines, and it's not. It happened before the trade, but you can kind of sense a little bit more of a vibe. But since the trade, there's a little bit more hop in their step. And to be honest, I don't even think they've played that great since the trade. So the wins they've had since they've had Harden are against a lot of bad teams that are tanking, and they've kind of just eked them out. I think this was the first real legitimately good win. They lost to OKC, 2 nights before that. An OKC team without SGA, without Jalen Williams, like that's a bad loss if you're a team like Cleveland. But to bounce back, I think you're just seeing a little bit more bounce in the step of everybody. And Harden, kind of it's that honeymoon period, man. Wes,
Yep.
you get that run with Harden, and it's usually it'll last probably till the end of the season, and then we'll see what the playoffs look like. But you get a honeymoon period with him, and I think they're all kind of trying to figure each other out right now.
I think the Cavs would be happy for a really great honeymoon. If it's just the honeymoon period, that's sort of the idea, right? We're in our championship window. All we kind of need is one really good honeymoon. And after that, it doesn't really matter how the rest of the
Well,
marriage
no,
goes.
but the problem is, Wes, it does matter because the honeymoon ends once the regular season ends.
That's the problem, right? You
And
need
that's
you need that
like
extended honeymoon with the private suite for like 2 weeks.
you need the 6-month honeymoon. You
Yes,
need
that's right.
we can travel around the world honeymoon,
Right.
more than just the 2-week one. And I think that's kind of what we're gonna find out about this team. Look, it's I said it almost immediately after the trade. I go, oh, this makes sense. The team was the most like playoff flops over the past couple of years. Traded for the guy who is known for playoff flops. Like it's that fair or unfair. That's how this team is going to be judged.
Yep.
They could win every game the rest of this regular season. We're all going to look at them in the playoffs and be like, what's the deal here?
I keep phrasing it as they're trying to see if two wrongs make a right, and that's kind of what we're looking at right now. It's a little surprising where these teams are in the standings. The Knicks are third. The Cavs are fourth in the standings. Despite last night's win for Cleveland, the Knicks still own the tiebreaker because they're up on the season series 2-1. The interesting thing I think about this specific matchup, and last night's game, this was apparent too. The Cavs do a really great job of guarding Jalen Brunson. Despite the fact that the Knicks are 2-1 against the Cavs this season, Brunson has not played well, right? There's been other reasons why. If I'm the Cavs, I feel pretty confident. If I'm going to end up in a playoff series against the Knicks, I do think I feel confident in at least my ability to defend Brunson. The Cavs have so much size that they could throw at him. They started the game with Dean Wade, who is back in the starting lineup now in Cleveland. Dean Wade as Brunson's primary defender. And they're able to just sort of throw waves of defenders at him. Jalen Tyson comes off the bench, right? Even James Harden, not a great defender. He's at least big and long and can just throw a little bit more bodies in front of him. And then obviously you've got Mobley and Jared Allen on the back line. I do think this Cavs team is a tough matchup for the Knicks, despite the fact that the season record is what it is.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult for the Knicks in that regards where it's like they match up really well with Jalen. They match up well with Cat. It's the other guys that have to have monster games, right? OG and Anunoby, I don't think they'll have an answer for. right? They'll probably try to put Mobley on him, I think. And Mobley's great defensively, but he's going to get pulled into rotations and things like that. And then it's the kick out to OG where OG can attack. I think that's really what they got to kind of hone in on if they match up in the playoffs. And I think that's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on with where they're going. It's going to be interesting there. I think they're set pretty nicely, against the Knicks, if you're the Cavs, the way you're looking at it. I think the Knicks need to do a little bit more of a better job concentrating on who they want to attack and how they want to attack. I still think they haven't fully figured out Mike Brown's offense. We know Cat struggled with it, although, he's played pretty well over the past few games, lately, but I think it's still a process for him trying to find touches and where he's going to get the ball. It's going to be a fun series because there'll be a lot of cat and mouse stuff, but I think ultimately, like, if you're the Cavs, if you're anybody in the East, you're not afraid of anybody else in the East.
Right.
Nobody in the East has shown themselves in a way where you feel like, oh man, I don't want to play this team. I'm afraid of this team.
One other thing on the Knicks here too is Mikal Bridges has to do more. I know I'm not the only one screaming this into the void here, but he missed 3 or 4 layups in that game against Cleveland. And if you're the Knicks, it's tough enough to get quality looks for everybody that's not Brunson or Cat. And when you do get those guys got to make them. In terms of the Cavaliers, like I said, the Knicks have been up and down. I don't know what to expect. I don't think anybody really knows what to expect of them. And you're seeing their odds on these sports books now drop in terms of winning the Eastern Conference. Cleveland, meanwhile, has shot up. They're the favorites now in the Eastern Conference, according to the sports books. I'm kind of there with them. I don't know that I feel great about any one particular team. Maybe Detroit, and I do want to get your thoughts on Detroit here in a second. But in terms of Cleveland, their offense is trending in the right direction. They're 3rd in offensive rating since Christmas, 7th in defensive rating, 5th in net rating. Since a really rocky start where I think a lot of people wrote them off, they've evened things out. They're getting guys healthy. And then, yes, they add James Harden, and they move out Darius Garland, so they get a guy who's going to play a lot for Garland. They also they got rid of DeAndre Hunter, got Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder. They've added a lot of depth. Dean Wade is healthy. Sam Merrill's healthy. All of a sudden, it feels like this Cavs team might be peaking at the right time, at the risk of maybe they're peaking right now. But they are trending in the right direction.
There's no doubt they're trending in the right direction. I'm going to just be honest with you. After what we've seen from the Cavs the past 3 years and adding James Harden,
it's fair to be skeptical.
Everybody can name them favorites. Everybody can do that. I will not do that. They are in a situation, for me personally, they got to prove it. I got to see it at this point because last year was, I know the injuries and everything like that was still a debacle when you were a 60-win team. And some of the losses that they had in that Indiana series were pretty bad, ways to lose in that. The year before when they got bullied by the Knicks, I'm not fully convinced they're a tougher team now in terms of just grit and toughness, especially in the front court. They played well yesterday. Jared Allen's going to get a bump. Playing with James Harden is huge for him, and he's going to get a lot more opportunities. But I'm going to be very curious to see how they handle some of the tougher teams and more physical teams. Like I understand the numbers. I understand everything. Everything's trending directly correct. Everybody's making the right evaluation. I will not make them my favorite until I see it in the playoffs.
Who is your favorite then?
None. I tweeted this out yesterday. Like, the East is so confusing right now. Like, this is the thing that really frustrates me sometimes. Because, like, by now I should have a strong conviction, Wes, of like after 60-something games, these are the teams that are going to go to the finals. These are the teams in the conference finals. When I look at the Eastern Conference, let's run through it. The Cavs beat the Knicks and beat them handily. It was a butt whooping, but they lost to OKC 2 nights ago. Detroit loses to San Antonio. I just look at everything across the board, and I'm just like, man, like at this point, it's like Boston might make it. Like it is a wide open field. I don't have a favorite. They are. Of the top 4 teams, it's 25, 25, 25, 25. Even odds for me.
Yeah, it does feel like we've sort of zeroed in on at least 4 teams here. It would be surprising at this point if a team like Toronto or Philly or one of these playing teams made a run here. You look at all of them, they all have flaws, right? Detroit, it's the inexperience in the shooting. For Boston, it's the fact that Jason Tatum. The Knicks, we've talked about it. The Cavs, we've talked about it. Like the Cavs are a team that has, not lived up to expectations when the bright lights are there. Whether it's without James Harden or James Harden separate, like these two kind of parties are coming together trying to overcome that. I think it's totally fair to be skeptical of Cleveland, but I also wonder, like, if you don't have a favorite, then it's almost like you could poke holes in all these arguments. I don't know that I would be surprised if Cleveland came out of the Eastern Conference either at this point.
I wouldn't be surprised because again, this is also just it's more a product of like how bad the Eastern Conference is. Like if we did the exercise, all right, let's just do this real quick, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here. We know the answer. You would take Oklahoma City all over the top 4.
Yeah.
Would you take San Antonio over the top 4?
Yes.
Okay. Would you take Houston over the top 4?
No.
Okay. A healthy Denver Nuggets team?
I'm getting Aaron Gordon healthy.
Let's just assume they're healthy. I'm just,
then yes, 100%.
Okay. Minnesota?
The Timberwolves just got, if they just don't vomit all over their own shoes for a series, then probably yes. I would probably take Minnesota. And that's probably the it in the West. That's probably
so we did 4 out of the 5 teams in the West we would take over the top 4. And I'm with you pretty much on all of that stuff. Houston would be in the mix, but I wouldn't trust them with just how bad their offense is. But like that's my point about
I think I would take all 4 of those teams over Houston at this point.
Yeah. I think Houston we're about to see them peter out, but that's we'll talk about I'm sure the West in a second. But to me that's my point, right? The Eastern Conference is just bad this year. It's just so down this year. And it's really kind of astonishing to sort of watch how all of this is kind of played out, where you're seeing these things. Look, we thought Orlando was going to be better. They haven't panned out. I thought the Hawks were going to be better. They haven't panned. The Hawks were the Hawks. I was stupid. I should have done with them what I do with Cleveland. Prove it to me. So, like in that sense, like there's a level of all of these things where it's like, the East is not as good as we were hoping it would be. It's going to be fun watching these teams slug it out.
Sure.
But like, I don't have any feel of what I don't have any conviction, which is bad in our business.
But I hear you. I'm with you. And I've been trying to be convinced of Detroit all season long. I've been convincing myself to stay convicted in Detroit all year long. We'll talk about them in a second. I would argue though, I think the Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be more fun to watch than the West. I think these teams, because of all I think it's going to be fun no matter what. But I think because these teams have these like serious glaring issues, it'll just be really fun to see like who pokes holes in which team and who can get over. Like I love the storylines in the East a little bit more than in the West, but the quality of basketball will obviously be higher in the West.
We might have some crazy first rounds in the Western Conference.
That's a really good point. The first round's going to be way better in the West.
We might have Oklahoma City Clippers in the first round. We might have, I mean, like this is some kind of heavyweight stuff that we might get kind of seeing right away off the bat. And assuming the Clippers and Kawhi stays healthy, that makes it a really interesting sort of series. Even the second round in the West, like the Lakers and Houston are like, right? But like if the second round of the West features Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Denver, Minnesota, like in any kind of combination, like that's gonna be nuts. So I think the West playoffs is gonna be more interesting.
Back to the Knicks part of this, everything that you're saying about the East is totally right. That is such a bad sign for the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Because Detroit, I love the season that they're having. We all have questions about what their viability is as a finals team. Boston, the East is wide open because of Boston's injuries, right? That it starts there. Cleveland, we talked about our concerns. After that, who cares? The Knicks season has gone perfect for them in terms of injuries. They add a really good guy in Alvarado at the deadline. They couldn't have asked for anything better here for the Knicks in terms of a situation. Lay it out. This is all happening. Detroit is the number 1 team in the East. If you would have told the Knicks all of this stuff before the season, you said, "Oh, and we're healthy the entire time," how they would have been flabbergasted that they were 3rd in the Eastern Conference, and right now again 4th on the sports books in terms of coming out. If they don't make the NBA Finals, I think it is a massive failure for the Knicks.
It is a massive failure. It was here for their taking right then and
Yep.
there, which kind of brings a couple of things here that I would throw out. And some of this, listen, I'm going to apologize, folks. Some of this is going to be a little bit unfair on my end. And that's sometimes it's just the thoughts in my brain, and I recognize that it's unfair, but I look at it and I go like, maybe you shouldn't have fired Tibbs, right? Like they haven't figured out the offense. Cat's having a pretty down year there. I was pissed off with the offense last year, right? And wanted to see more and stuff and used Mikal Bridges more. Maybe they could have found a different way to kind of get Tibbs to add more offense, because now that you've thrown in a whole new system, it hasn't looked the same, hasn't looked right across the board. And then when you're looking at the situation, it's just the defense isn't quite what it is. And the defense was always going to be a problem. Listen, you're starting Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. That's two non-defenders. Let's just be honest. And there are going to be problems in the playoffs. There are going to be targets. Teams are going to set a screen to get Brunson on the ball and then bring Cat's man up. And you can try to pre-switch. Then the guy you pre-switched with is going to come up. Like it's going to be a cat and mouse sort of thing that we're going to see, which is always fun in the playoffs and things that are fun to kind of watch for. But that's a problem, right? Like there's that stuff. And then it's just like hubris is always the biggest problem. And I look at, I don't know what the record's been since James Dolan's interview a while back of like, we should win the championship this year, which was already wild because that was right in the middle of OKC's run of like, I think
Looking
it was
unbeatable.
right around where they were like 24-1 kind of deal. And everybody's like, you're not beating OKC. I think that's kind of the all of those things kind of have come down to them where they really thought, and they should have, this is our year, and this is our year to get to the finals. And it really hasn't come together in the way just the fact there were trade rumors about Cat going into the deadline is just a bad sign.
Yeah. If I'm with you that the Tibbs firing was probably a mistake. I don't know that hiring Mike Brown was also a mistake if you were already starting with a mistake. To be fair to Mike Brown, like one of the criticisms of Tibbs was that it was too Jalen Brunson Cat centric. Well, Mike Brown he expanded the offense. There's a lot of Mikal Bridges in the offense now. The problem is that Mikal Bridges can't make a layup and can't take advantage of it. Is that Tibbs' fault? Is that Mike Brown's fault? I don't think it's the coach's fault. That maybe you can look at the Bridges trade and say maybe there was a mistake there. OG Anunoby's got to stay healthy, and when he's out there, he's got to do more, right? Instead of just standing in the corner and waiting for the ball to come to him. I do think that there's other things there that go beyond the coaching.
I would say this. It is hard when you're bringing in a whole new system, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody has to buy in. And it seemed pretty clear, especially early on, that Cat didn't really buy in.
Yep.
Right. And that became a problem with that. And even now, every now and then you hear things about his touches and things like that. And you're like, okay, that's actually not really a good sign. You don't really want all that stuff. My thing was when you fired Tibbs, Mike Brown wasn't much of a different hire to me.
Right.
And that was actually like to me, and that's not Mike Brown's fault. That's not a Mike Brown problem. I just think if you're going to fire Tibbs, you just kind of hired Tibbs light.
Yeah.
In that sense. And I think that kind of like, I would have wanted somebody and a little bit more versed offensively than even Mike Brown.
Yeah.
In the way they're doing it. And yes, they needed to change their offense. Maybe it wasn't a wholesale change that they needed in their offense. They needed to just tweak 20% of it, 25% of it. And it didn't have to be so Jalen Brunson and Cat centric. Whereas if they will give up 25% of the pie, that'll be enough, right? And I think that's kind of where it's at. And I can't believe I'm defending Tibbs because, like, that's a world I don't like living in. But it's just I when you kind of look at this, and of course, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah,
you have to kind of look at it, go like, I don't know.
Would they have been better off going in like Jordy Fernandez, Jordan Ott, type of direction with these younger coaches? I will say this: the one thing that Tibbs did do really well in New York, and this, Mo, this is something that maybe has been taken for granted in New York for a long time, keeping the focus on basketball, right? I thought Tibbs did a really good job. Like, there was so much drama around that Knicks organization prior to Tibbs that he came in and was just like, no, we're going to We're going to be a basketball team that talks about basketball. I'm not even going to entertain this outside stuff. Mike Brown, to his credit, has done a really good job of continuing that. I think both Tibbs and Mike Brown get a lot of that credit. That's hard for, I think, a younger coach to navigate, right? That said, they definitely you need a little bit more inventiveness, and it feels like with the Knicks, they just feel stale, and right now they feel like they don't necessarily have an identity, which is a really big problem, and that does come down to coaching a lot of times.
And I'm not putting this on like, oh, Mike Brown's a bad coach. Mike Brown's a great coach. Like I don't want to put that in. I think he was put in a bad situation.
Yeah, I think that's
with what they kind of in the instance of that. Now, great that he's getting paid nicely, so maybe it's not that bad of a situation. But like, I think there's an element of it's a lot harder. And he came in and he's done what we've all wanted, right? Let's diversify the offense. And it's just not kind of providing. So that's where I say when it's hindsight's 2020, maybe we were all wrong and it just needed a tweak of the offense and they didn't need to fully change it. Yeah. And I mean that, and myself included, in that I was wrong in the way I looked at it with that. This isn't a job for a young guy. I remember when they were looking at the hiring, and it was, we always knew it was going to be Mike Brown, but there was always Taylor Jenkins' name was being brought up. And I wasn't 100% sure that he would. It was the thing was, you fired Tibbs, and it was hard because there wasn't quite a plan of what are we going to do next. And I think, everybody thought Michael Malone was going to get the job, and that, that came and went pretty quick. And I think there was just like an element of like, we thought when they fired Tibbs, the coach, they had the coach who they wanted next already kind of lined up, and that wasn't the case. And I don't think there was a full plan, and I don't know if it was fully thought out in that sense. And that's where I think where we're seeing some of the issues now.
One of those coaches was Jason Kidd that they had reportedly reached out to and got denied. I wonder if Kidd looks back on that and says, I don't know how much I'm into this rebuilding Dallas Mavericks situation. Maybe I should have been more open to that Knicks gig. They're at least a top top 3 team in their conference.
I would have hated that hire. I'll just be honest.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm just curious.
But yeah, it was definitely there were definitely some coaches. Remember, they called like every team to try to talk to their coach.
I would love to know the list of the coaches whose names they called about that did not get reported. I'll just leave that there. Let's talk about the Pistons, number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, obviously. Like I said, I've been on the Pistons all season long. I was really high on them coming into the season. I have no reason to change that. There's obvious flaws with Detroit. We could talk about the inexperience, one real playoff round last year where they lose to the Knicks. We talk about the shooting, which is probably the biggest bugaboo that they've got right now. But we've already discussed this, Mo. Like, every team in the East has a flaw. I see no reason why Detroit couldn't come out of the Eastern Conference if we're assuming that there is no great team in the Eastern Conference. Basically, if the Knicks and the Cavs don't get their bleep together, I don't see any reason why the Pistons couldn't come out. Now, winning the championship is an entirely different thing. We can leave that over there. We'll
leave that in the West. We'll leave that to the Western Conference.
Yeah. With the Pistons, I'm in, man. I think this team can make the finals.
Yeah, here's the thing, especially with the way the Eastern Conference is kind of set up. It's all about how the playoff matchups fall, right? By the time the end of the season ends, right? And like who's in what bracket and whatnot, and where can they have. Where do they have, like, this team can beat this team but can't beat this team? Like, it's kind of a weird sort of thing. I think that's going to be kind of a critical thing of who comes out of the East is sort of their route. And I think my problem with the Pistons is, and it was highlighted in this game with the Spurs, and it's not so much the shooting bugaboo, which we all know, right? They make up for it by cutting, moving, and the movement and stuff like that. There is such a massive drop-off from when Cade has the ball to anybody else on that team. It's massive. And you saw it in the game where they literally, with the Spurs games, go back. I actually did a video on Offside for it. Make sure you check that out. Offside.gg. Go download the app. See, that was a good plug. You're seeing it where it's like, cool, Cade's coming. Castle's on him, and Castle's a defensive demon. Like, goddamn. Like, watching him is just like, defensively, I just go like, holy crap. He's all over him, picking him up 3/4 court, meeting him at half court. And then when Cade gets down, towards the 3-point line, defense is completely shaded over, right? Like, they're not guarding the Ron Hollins. They're not guarding a Sor Thompson. They're not, they are literally just saying, we are going to trap you and let the other guys deal with us. And how it works against San Antonio, because it's 4-on-3, except one of the three is usually Victor Wembanyama, and that's two guys. So it's really 4-on-5 because Wemby's so damn long. But like it's you're in a challenging situation. I don't know how they combat that. Right? Like I think they made a mistake at the trade deadline not being more aggressive.
Mm.
And I think that is a brutal situation to be in. And I think it's going to be tough for them come playoff time with that. Like last year's playoff run, look, Dennis Schroeder made a big difference for them, had an impact. Another guy, and it's not like he's on Cade's level, but like was a massive impact for them. The fact that Ausar Thompson hasn't taken any sort of offensive leap this year makes him a liability, which is why when people are like, I can't believe they didn't play Thompson that much in the second half. No, they're trying to get back in this game and they need offense. And he's not their guy. I get it, by the way. I know Beef Stew wasn't playing in this game. That I don't feel like that makes a massive, big difference.
Well, and it doesn't change the bigger picture point that you're making, right? Like you're not giving Beef Stew the ball at half court and asking him to go create out of a pick and roll. So
yeah, you're in a tough spot if you're Detroit, because like that's how teams are going to guard Cade.
Yeah,
you know, Cade goes 5 of 26, and everybody's like, "Oh, Cade, worst game," and like, yeah, because he had to deal with 2 or 3 defenders every time, and one of those guys was Wemby coming over on the weak side, which is long as hell. He had 4 blocks, I think, on Cade alone.
Cade's not as good as Shea, but the way that he's used is very similar. And I think why you've seen Shea and the Thunder struggle against Wembanyama is that he vaporizes all of those short mid-range paint touches, right? With just his presence by the rim or even around the rim alone. And for Cade, you take that stuff away, and it's really difficult at that point for Cade because he's not this knockdown three-point shooter and all these other things. And he's not that great at finishing at the rim already. And so, you know, that is what it is. And it's really hard, to your point, for Detroit to release him off the ball, right? And try to get him some easy backdoor stuff or whatever it is, because they just don't have that creator. I was more on the patient approach going into the trade deadline. You know, you hear the name Lauri Markkanen or whatever, Michael Porter Jr. thrown around with Detroit, and I was always like, I don't know if that's really the guy that I want there. I kind of would rather see what this young team can do. As time has gone on, I think I'm more on your side, Mo. I do think that they probably made a mistake at the deadline with not going for it. Now, they could still make the finals, right? Like, they can absolutely make the finals. But had they made a big-ish move, and maybe it doesn't have to be like Markkanen sized, right? But we saw Utah go in a different direction here at the deadline and become buyers instead of sellers. But I still feel like Oklahoma City and San Antonio and these teams are far superior. But I just wonder if Detroit had made the right move, would they have given themselves a puncher's chance in a final series? And I think maybe they missed it.
It's not even like a big name. Like we've known all the big names, and none of those guys were available, right? Brooklyn wasn't trading Porter. Utah wasn't trading Lauri Markkanen. They're more content sitting him during the fourth quarter of games. Yeah, that was a cheap shot from me. But like you couldn't get Ayo Dosunmu. Like you traded with the Bulls, but you got Kevin Huerter. Like you couldn't have gotten Kobe White. Like we were trading with the Bulls, and like, nah. Like just even that level would help a little bit in that scenario of where they were. Like those are the things, like hell, even if they got in like Sexton, like I would have felt a little bit better, right?
You would have fit in there. He's got this,
like, we're talking about, like, I know they have Karis LeVert, and like LeVert didn't have but like how long are we going to keep doing this with Karis LeVert? Yeah. And my problem too with the idea of, hey, let's see what this young team has. Looking forward to next season, Indiana's going to be better, right? They're going to get Tyrese back, and they're going to have a high lottery pick. Boston's going to be better because they're going to get Jason Tatum, maybe back this year, but like normal type of season from Boston. You still have the Knicks. You still have Cleveland. Knicks are probably going to do something crazy if they don't get to the finals. Like you still have a lot to contend with. You have a Charlotte team that's rising up. Who knows what happens with them in the offseason? Like
Miami with Giannis next year. I mean,
like you don't know all of that stuff. But like I think my whole point is like this was the year.
Yep.
To like they made a move last year and got Schroeder, and it changed them last year. And yeah, they got knocked out in the first round, but like I felt like they really missed an opportunity. And that's why that game against the Spurs really just kind of highlighted like this is how teams will defend you come playoff time. How will you deal with it? And I'm going to be mean here. I don't trust JB Bickerstaff to figure it out.
Look, it's another one of those prove it things, right? We've seen JB in playoff series the last few years, Cleveland or Detroit. He leaves some meat on the bone, I think is a polite way to put it. Last question on the Eastern Conference, and then we're going to move to the West. If I told you that the Celtics had Jason Tatum at 100% and the Sixers had Joel Embiid at 100%, so they're both 100% for their teams, full playoff run, who would you say has a better chance to come out of the Eastern Conference? Celtics or Sixers?
I got to just go Boston. They've done it, and it's and this isn't a shot at the Sixers because I think Sixers would be really interested if they had 100% Embiid. And I'm going to just throw Paul George in there as well. Like, that's a really interesting squad. But I just look at Boston and saying, like, they know exactly how they want to play. Look at the fact that they're number 2 in the Eastern Conference right now, like, and where they're at and the way they're getting stuff from, like, Jaylen Brown should be in the MVP discussion. Peyton Pritchard's been absolutely phenomenal on a nightly basis. It's either Pritchard or Derek White going off. They have, defensive dogs in Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez, Shireman and Hauser are not as bad defensively as people seem to think, and they knock down the three, but like they kind of know exactly who they are, who they're supposed to be. There are no questions there. And if you had 100% Jason Tatum fully healthy, I would have to go with them.
You're probably right, but for the sake of podcasting, I'll take the Sixers. I just 100% Joel Embiid. We've never seen that in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
That's why I haven't seen it. I can't understand what that is.
Right. It's like Bigfoot. But with the way Maxi's playing and the depth that the Sixers have on the perimeter, it's still probably Boston. I'm trying to talk myself into Philly. I don't know. I'm trying to do it. But to your point, that's probably not going to happen. We're probably looking at the 4 teams, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're going to take a quick break, and then we are going to move on to some various Western Conference topics. All right, let's talk about the West. I've got a bunch of different sort of lightning round-ish type of topics for you, Mo. Let's start with the Denver Nuggets. You were talking about this a little bit earlier in the show, but what's Denver's preferred path through the playoffs? Because I think the Nuggets are in an interesting spot in the Western Conference right now where I think that they might be more dependent on their matchup than maybe any other team at the top of the West. Right? They're all dependent to a certain respect, but because of Denver's injuries and just some of the things that they're dealing with, I think matchups are going to matter a lot. And what's so interesting about them is they're smack dab in the middle of the playoff standings right now. OKC and San Antonio are 1-2. They're running away with that. Then you've got a group of basically 3 teams, maybe 4 if we count the Lakers, even though they're starting to slide a little bit, that can finish anywhere between 3 and 6. Houston, Denver, Minnesota, and the Lakers. Phoenix is starting to slide back. They're 12 games back, 2 games behind the Lakers. So I'm not counting them anymore, even though they were there. But, Dylan Brooks and Devin Booker have been out, and it just seems like they're going in the other direction right now. With Denver, going back to the initial question there, what do you think? Like, should they be trying to stay in the top 4? Like, what's the team that if they're going to try to maneuver the standings, what's the team that they probably want to draw in round 1, and what's sort of their preferred path to try to make it to the finals?
I think they would prefer. Well, let me put it this way: they don't want Minnesota in the first round. The way it's set up right now, 4-5, that's a series I would not want if I'm Denver. Not that they can't beat Minnesota, but that's a drag out fight. That's minimum 6 games.
So I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is actually why I wanted to have this conversation, because that's where it's at right now. And if I'm with you, if I'm Denver, I am trying to avoid this Minnesota matchup at all costs.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the first point, right? So I'd actually would want to get to 3 and have the Lakers in the first round, because I think the Lakers are going to flame out. With the injuries to Phoenix, I don't feel like the Lakers are going to drop to the plane. I don't think Phoenix will be able to catch them. With the Devin Booker injury, he's kind of not right. And then obviously Dylan Brooks is out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand. Like, that's sucks for Phoenix. Fun story, but didn't quite stay healthy enough. So for them, I would want to try to get to that 3 seed. If you could pick your spots, I would go try to get Lakers in the first round, maybe Houston in the second round, which isn't the way it would work out. and the way it would be set up, and then either Oklahoma City or San Antonio. Like, let them slug it out in the second round.
Let me ask you this: if you're the Nuggets, because this is sort of the next layer of this, would you rather draw OKC or San Antonio in the next round, in the second round? Because I kind of think the Spurs are a tougher matchup for the Nuggets. We've seen the Nuggets take the Thunder to 7 games last year. I almost wonder, with the Thunder dealing with some of the injuries that we don't know that they're going to be healthy, right? I almost wonder if I'm Denver, I'd prefer to draw OKC in the second round.
I think I disagree a little bit, because I think they could. The way I know the matchups with San Antonio is actually be really difficult, and I'm going to just go into it, and I'm trying to be a positive guy, folks. I'm generally cynical and pessimistic. I'm trying to work on myself. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit positive and go with Denver's fully healthy. And if they have Aaron Gordon healthy, I think that takes pressure off Cam Johnson, who hasn't quite really been as plug and play as I thought he would be this year. A little bit kind of disappointed in the season he has. If they have Peyton Watson healthy, that's a lot of defense there that they can kind of match up with the Spurs in a good way, I think. And I think Jokic versus Wemby, I think I would still give that to Jokic with just his craftiness and things like that. And I think Wemby would get pulled into different areas, and would be a bit problem for them, for the Spurs to kind of figure that stuff out. So I think
in that matchup, we might see more of Cornette and Wemby on the court together than we've seen in the regular season. That might be something that Mitch Johnson's saving for the playoffs.
But that's actually not like the way the Spurs are at their best, honestly, is when they have 2 of those 3 guards out there.
Yeah.
Vassell. And then, it's Harrison Barnes or he got moved to the bench, but adding 4 guards and 4 wings or whatever, and Wemby kind of playing that, I think has been their best run as of late, and I think that's part of the reason why they're on a 9-game win streak with the way they're playing and getting a lot of good shooting out of it. I don't know necessarily if that's the thing. That's a tough matchup in general for Denver either way.
Yeah,
but I think I'm trying to, because now I'm kind of like, man, the Thunder and Spurs play pretty similarly too, and I think that's sort of
I mean, they both have the perimeter defenders to guard Jamal Murray with. They both have the multiple bigs that they can send at Jokic. That's why I just think the Wemby factor. If I'm the Nuggets, I at least know what this Thunder matchup is going to be. I've got film on it. I've got experience on it. I kind of I think I would just want to knock them out in the second round and then move and then hope that somebody. So I looked at my preferred path. I think you got to stay in that 4 spot. Make sure you get home court in the first round. Hope that Minnesota drops and that you don't have to play them in the 4-5. That you get Houston or LA in that 4-5 matchup, and then hopefully you get. And then I think you prefer OKC over San Antonio in the second round, and then you hope somebody knocks out the Spurs before the Western Conference Finals. I think that's the preferred path for Denver.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be hard, and I think it's just in general, it's going to be a real challenge for them. And if they're not healthy, they're really in trouble.
The biggest caveat: if Aaron Gordon's not 80% for the playoffs, they're dead on arrival. I think they're DOA at that point. Next Western Conference topic: how good can the Jazz be next season?
They got first off, if they were in the East, I'd have a different view of them. It's like, but they have a legitimate chance to be at the very least a play-in team next season, right? And I'm not trying to get too overly excited. Look, the leap Keontae George made has been phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have a high draft pick, or at least they better after all the tanking that they're going through and embarrassing the league every chance they get.
Karma might have something to say about that.
Who's that?
Karma might have something to say about that. We'll see.
We'll see. My world, the way the world works now, it doesn't seems like Karma took a vacation. I think the whole thing is like, high draft pick, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., most likely Kessler Walker. So Walker Kessler. I always
Walker Kessler.
Walker. I do it all. I'm so bad at that. Walker Kessler. If you have
it's his fault, not yours.
Yeah. If you have 2 first names, you're gonna mess me up. And I don't know if Walker's
Is it
necessarily
two
a
first
first
names
name
or two last names?
or two, whatever. If you have two of the same, it's gonna mess me up.
Kessler
Carter
as a
Bryant,
first name. I don't know that I've ever heard a whiter name than Kessler as a first name.
Yeah, that's true. Carter Bryant or Bryant Carter, like that messes me up all the time. I'm sorry, folks.
I'm sorry. I'm still on the Jan Hansen thing. I can't wait. It changed after the draft, and I'm just
No,
like,
that wasn't fair either. Like, whatever. We're going into territories we probably don't want to venture in. I think more importantly, though, back to your question, like there's a core there.
Yeah,
that's going to be there for a while, and I think that's really kind of an important thing there. And then it's just kind of how does that come together with that? The West is stacked, right? OKC's still going to be OKC. San Antonio's still going to be San Antonio to some degree. Denver's not going anywhere. Minnesota's not going anywhere. So that's the top. That's 4 right there out of probably the top 6. Who knows what the Lakers look like next year?
Well, that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, right? Those 4, I agree with you. After that, I have no idea. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with Houston. There's some rumblings that stuff could happen in Houston this offseason, right? Like, we're not really sure what's going to happen there. The Lakers, to your point, we don't really know what is going to happen with LeBron and how they're going to backfill that, if they do need to backfill, or if we're starting to hear a little bit more. Maybe LeBron will come back, and I'm not sure the Lakers are better for that. But, we'll see. Phoenix, I think, will be better, but I don't know that you could sit here right now and be like, yeah, Phoenix for sure will be better than Utah. Golden State's going the other direction. Clippers, they're
we don't know.
Who knows?
With
right. That's actually, let's put a pin in the Clippers thing because that's another topic.
We have no idea. Yeah.
And then you just go through the rest of the Portland, Memphis, Dallas, New Orleans, Sacramento. No. Maybe New Orleans can jump up if a little bit better luck and some cohesiveness. But yeah, I think you're looking at that 4, and then after that, it's pretty wide open. Utah could be. You mentioned play-in. I'm with you. I mean, they could end up 5th or 6th in the West next year. I don't think that's crazy.
I mean, they could, but that also means everything has gone right.
Yeah, for sure.
They got the number 1 pick and they nailed it. It would be AJ DeBonsa if they. I don't think there's any question about it, just because of the whole Utah ties. Like, that would be their number 1 pick, and then that all kind of comes together, works. Everybody plays, everybody's healthy, everything, all that stuff comes together perfectly. Will Hardy finally has a team that actually looks like they want to try to win. I think would be a lot of fun there. I just think the West is so stacked because I don't think the Lakers are going to go anywhere really. Most likely
going away, right? They still got Luka.
It's still going to have Luka. Most likely we're going to have Austin Reeves. Probably not LeBron. But trying to figure out where they're kind of figuring Houston's going to be in win now mode. I don't think whatever rumblings we're hearing, I don't think it's going to be we're going to go into rebuild. No, they're going to try to win now. It's they just went through the rebuild to get here, so they're still going to so it's just tough. And then I think Portland's up and coming. Phoenix, from what we saw this season, I can't imagine there's just not as many spots as you would hope if you're Utah, thinking you're going to climb out and everything has to go right. If you're going to be in the top 6, everything has to go perfectly. If you're going to be in the play-in, you can have some bumps, but hopefully everybody else will have a lot of bumps too, and we'll be able to kind of capitalize.
Markkanen top 12 in scoring this year. You're bringing back Jaren Jackson Jr. next year, former Defensive Player of the Year. Keontae George, I might be my most improved player if I were voting right now. He's been phenomenal. He's totally transformed his game from his last couple. He's a good finisher now. He's a good three-point shooter now. His passing has gone up several notches this year. He's been phenomenal. He looks like a legit guy who could be an all-star, a multiple-time all-star. I'm still trying to figure out what I think about the ceiling of Keontae George. I do think some of this stuff hinges on bringing back Walker Kessler Jr. But
is there a junior in there too?
No, I just threw that in there.
Okay, because I was like, oh God. I was like, oh no.
A lot of this hinges on the Walker Kessler restricted free agency. But then also getting Jaren Jackson Jr. is a little bit of an insurance in case they lose him. It wouldn't be ideal. Obviously, you'd like to play Jackson at the 4 with a guy like Kessler next to him. That's the vision there. But worst case scenario, some team comes in with some Godfather offer for Kessler. You can't match it for whatever reason. Jackson at the 5, Markkanen, maybe you bring back Nurkic or something and you go in that direction. It's not, you're not at a dead end. It's not ideal.
It wouldn't be a fatal flaw. It wouldn't be fatal for them if they lost him. Right.
You would go George, Ace Bailey, Markkanen, Jackson, fill in your 5th starter. They're going to have minimal space after the Jackson deal, but they're still going to have the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. They're also going to have the top pick that you alluded to. I am a little concerned about their depth going forward, but over these next 20-plus games, I think that's what this is for, right? Find out. Okay, yeah, obviously they're still tanking these games in fourth quarters. It is a good chance for guys like Isaiah Collier, Cody Williams, Kyle Filipowski, Vince Williams, who they got in that Memphis trade also, who I really liked as a throw-in. I'm a big Vince Williams fan. If
Out
you
for
can
the
get
year
like
with the
one
ACL,
or the,
though, that's going to be tough.
oh, that's
Like,
true. That's true. But if you can get for next year one or two of those guys to be 8th, 9th type guys in your rotation, 7th, 8th, 9th type guys in your rotation, I think that's a pretty good result. And if you could start to figure some of that stuff out over these next 20 plus games, I think that's what those games are for.
No, that's what the past 60-something games were for. They weren't trying to win in the first place. Like, we all knew this. Like, nobody believed Austin Ainge when he came out and said, we're not tanking this year. Everybody knew they were still going to tank. But my thing is, if you don't know by now who those guys are, Isaiah Collier's been with them for a few years. Filipowski's been with them for a few years. You know, like,
I'm afraid to say, I think we might already know what Cody Williams is all about.
Right. Well, I mean, like, they've been in their system. These aren't new guys. Gigi Jackson was the one guy that's new to them.
Yeah.
In that you've named that they didn't know. And unfortunately, with the ACL injury, and that was a weird situation with Tari Eason there. We'll leave that one alone. But like, I can't, like, I don't know what they are, but even if they're thin, that's fine. Because you're not contending. You're not in that position to contend right now. You're not going to be competing for a championship. We are literally talking about making the play-in, and you can be a little bit light on the bench if you're going to be a play-in team right now. And that just needs to be their goal for next season.
Mm-hmm. Next topic. I'm going to save this one for last. Let's breeze through this Clippers one really quick. What's the plan for the Clippers and Kawhi? Let's speed round this one. Is Kawhi on the Clippers at the beginning of next year?
I think so. I just don't think the talk of like, is it really a punishment if we void his contract and then he gets a contract elsewhere? Like, that's really my question. Like, is that, do you know how many teams would line up to sign him, especially after what he's just done over the past 30 something games? If they void his
contract and obviously nobody knows the rules here, but if they voided his contract, would the Clippers be able to sign and trade him? I don't know, because then you're dealing with a cap space situation, and not a lot of teams have that max cap space, and the ones that do, I don't know how interested Kawhi would be in playing there.
No, well, it's not even that. Like, I think he would, like, we've already seen, like, he'd be interested in just staying on the West Coast, right?
Yes.
So we've already seen everybody kind of line up in that situation. Obviously, if they void the contract, I don't think there's a way for or for the Clippers to
no, but you see what's going to happen here,
Mo, no, it's
right?
the Warriors. It's the Warriors or the Lakers.
It's the Lakers.
Yeah, it's the Warriors or the Lakers.
LeBron walks away, goes to Cleveland for his tour, and the Lakers are somehow a year and a half after being gifted Luka Doncic, gifted Kawhi Leonard.
I just don't. I don't think voiding the contract is the answer.
Yeah,
maybe it's suspend him for a season or something or whatever, and that hurts because then that hits the wallet and doesn't get him a new deal. I don't know. I have a very hard time with what punishments are they going to levy in this instance, you know, and both sides should be levied. There was reports yesterday that the league's going to come down harder on Kawhi than the Clippers. Both sides are involved in this. I don't think it's fair to just come down on one side versus the other. You know, the argument is that, well, Kawhi has people asked for it and this, and they knew better. Well, the Clippers also knew better because they granted it. So I think you have that kind of situation sort of bubbling up and the way that works. I think the real thing is, how do we kind of make it so that it feels like, hey, like, you can't be doing this, and we deter the next.
Well, that's where I'm at with the Clippers thing. And this is why maybe those reports are coming out that maybe they only punish Kawhi in order to basically not have to punish the Clippers, because the idea of the Clippers get docked some draft picks or or like a slap on the wrist thing would be, I'm gonna call it out now. If the NBA does that, that I'm gonna accuse them of circumvention or circumventing whatever. I don't know. There's not levels to circumventing the cap. So if the NBA determines that you circumvented, then you did it. It's either you did it or you didn't. It's black and white. And if you did it, the maximum penalty possible is what is called for. Because you cannot afford your teams to circumvent the cap, and you really can't afford for fans to think that teams are circumventing the cap. You got to make an example. Now, I understand that Steve Ballmer, well respected, and all these things, and you want to, you have the politics of all of that to deal with if you're Adam Silver in the league office. But my point overall is, it would be, I think, a really bad look for the league to do a slap on the wrist to the Clippers, which is why they might not punish them at all and just say, hey, in our findings, the Clippers didn't know anything about this, and we can just punish Kawhi, the player, because he's not going to be around as long as Steve Ballmer's around, probably.
Well, I think
and that would be wrong.
Some of the stuff, I see people like, oh, they should take the franchise away from Steve Ballmer. No, they shouldn't. No. Steve Ballmer's a fantastic owner for any sports league. Like, let me just be honest with you. Dude has boatloads of money, willing to spend, clearly willing to go as far as he can to try to if I'm a Clipper fan, I'm like, hell yeah, man. After years of Sterling, cheap as hell, all that stuff. Yeah, he might have cheated, but at least he's trying these things. Like, there's all that stuff, right? If I'm the league, I'm coming down hard on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And this is whatever's legal or not, I don't know, but this is the way I would try to do it. Suspend Kawhi for a season, which would suck because that's a career. You're ending closely his career. He doesn't play for a year. Like, that's going to be a weird position there. And that's something you maybe have to weigh a little bit lighter or weigh differently. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I'm suspending Ballmer for a season because there's nothing that man loves more than this Clipper team. I'm telling you now, he's at all the games. Like, he's there courtside, super excited. That's a punishment that would hurt him. And then I'm suspending Lawrence Frank. Right. And I don't know how much he knew, how much he didn't know, whatnot, or things like that. But you got to hit all those levels, and then fining the team and
I think you have to take away some sort of roster building part of this, because that's what the other GMs and coaches are going to want. Right. Is, hey, you got Kawhi on this no-show deal type of contract thing. You kind of bent the rules and had a competitive advantage in that way. You need a competitive disadvantage for at least a couple years going forward. But I'm with you. I think we're on the right track. Last thing here.
Whoa, no. We literally have breaking news.
What is it?
Shams Charania reporting Cleveland star James Harden sustained a fracture in his right thumb during Tuesday's win over the New York Knicks. Harden is undergoing further evaluations and treatment. That's gonna hurt. We don't know how
about this conversation.
That changes pretty much the entire podcast. But
Chris Haynes saying he's questionable for the Bucks, so he's not going to play. But at least not being listed as out right away. I don't know. Maybe some reason for optimism for Cleveland. Something to monitor there. Last thing I wanted to ask you, Mo. Could Anthony Edwards be the best player in the league one day?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's just he's got. First off, forget about the fact I love him.
Yeah.
I love everything about him. The personality, he's fun, all of that stuff. There are things he has to get a little bit better at, but he could definitely be the best player in the league. First thing I love about him more than anything else is he plays both sides of the ball or both sides of the court. Like, that's one of my favorite things, man. Like, we have too many players. We've made this phrase two-way basketball player when that really should just be a basketball player. And we should start using the phrase one-way player. You only play on the defense or you only play offense. Like, he is a full-on, well-rounded basketball player. Yeah, his help defense is a little bit shaky. His off-the-ball defense, not great. But, like, when he locks in, he's awesome. I think what you're seeing in his development across over the past few seasons, he's constantly working on his game, which is something that helps you to become that thing. I don't think there's I don't know if he'll get there, because also a lot of competition when you look around the league. But I think he's right in that mix where he can definitely be one of the best basketball players ever, like on the planet in the current time. Right. Excuse me, I got too excited. Not ever.
One of the best players in the league. I mean, he's already there, right?
Now.
He's already top 5, 6, 7, wherever you want to put him. He's clearly, I think, in that top group of 7. But look, he's 24 years old, only 2 years older than Victor Wembanyama. Everybody assumes Wemby's coming, and he's coming. But I do think that there's a games played and availability thing lingering with Wemby where you don't have that concern with Ant, right? And just if we're going to split hairs in terms of who is the best player on the planet a couple of years from now, that I'm just saying that could come into play.
Yeah,
Luka's 26, Shea's 27. Like those guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But would it be crazy for Ant to pass Luka next year? No. Shea's where he's at. Jokic is 31. I don't know. I think in 2 or 3 years, when Ant is fully in his prime at 27, 28 years old, I think we could talk about this guy as maybe the future best player in the league. And it just kind of feels like we all appreciate Ant for who he is, but we don't really talk. Like, I think we were kind of here with Shea a couple years ago. We were like, wow, this guy's really good. What a great scorer this guy is. I don't think a lot of people saw Shea becoming arguably the best player in the world, winning MVPs. And I do think that that's in the cards for Ant. He's third in scoring. The thing that he has to do is figure out the playmaking part of this. He's got the worst assist to turnover ratio of anybody averaging 25 plus points per game this year. Only Markkanen averages fewer assists per game among that group. I think with the playmaking of anything, he's taken a step back in that department, and it's starting to feel like Minnesota may have decided that they don't necessarily want to develop him as a primary playmaker, which would be strange because everybody in Ant's position over the last few years, a scoring guard, those teams kind of develop their scoring guards as their primary playmaker / initiator. Like Ant might be like the last true shooting guard in this respect, if this is indeed where Minnesota is going with this. And that, I think you could still be the best player on the planet in that way, but I think the big piece that has to come is the playmaking, obviously, with him.
I don't agree with you on that. I think part of it, one, he's put in more effort this year in trying to be a playmaker. I think the problem is also the roster, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of similar a little bit to Cade, and he's not as good as Cade in the playmaking. Cade came in as a point guard. Ant did not come in as a point guard. So it's already on two different levels to begin with, and he'll probably never be at the level of Cade as a point guard in that sense. And I don't think Ant's going to be a point guard. He's going to be a shooting guard with playmaking abilities. But you're seeing that stuff kind of develop. It's a few months ago, but John Krasinski wrote a great piece about it in the crunch time, and Ant was literally talking about a quote. Yeah, I held onto the ball too long there. I should have hit the pocket pass to Randall or something. It was like along those, but like he's thinking it, which is the first step, like the first kind of process in that stuff. And again, he's 24. He's never had to do that. And then on top of that, he is seeing double team after double team after double team. Like it is a very difficult thing to try to develop the playmaking because your kick out passes to Rudy Gobert, right? And like that's he's
not
hard.
Always playing in a ton of space. Yeah,
it's hard in that sense. I don't think they're not trying to develop into that stuff. I also think at a certain point too, it's like, well, shit, man, you just got to go get us a bucket.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of the situation that they're in and trying to sort out how they go through all of this stuff. I think that's the stuff you want to see. I think over time he'll get there with the playmaking stuff, but I also want to see him add other stuff. I want to see more post-ups from him. I want to see him kind of become more well-run. But again, it goes back to what I said. He genuinely is trying to do more.
I love his competitive level. My mind is still blown that he just became a good 3-point shooter overnight. Like arguably the most prolific 3-point shooter in the league.
But it's not even overnight. He worked his ass off to get there, and then it appeared overnight. Right?
Yes, exactly. He's crazy. Like in terms of his talent level, to me, is off the charts because he does have the capacity, I think, to do anything. Now, in terms of playmaking, you're right. He's never going to be that super level Halliburton type of playmaker. I think he can get to a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander level of, hey, just consistently make the right read at the right time. Use your scoring ability to become a better passer. I think Shai's a good passer. He's again not at that Halliburton, Luka, LeBron level passer. That to me, I think, is the ceiling of where. And if he gets there, plus all the scoring, and then what he could do defensively, yes, best player in the world, absolutely in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I feel like he has all the tools and gifted, with this stuff. And I think the drive, let me just go back to the All-Star game. Because this was a thing where going into this All-Star game, I written him off because I've seen him before not give a damn about the All-Star game, but to his competitive nature. Once Wemby brought it,
Yep.
he brought it, and he amped it up to another level in the way he was going. And you got to remember, going into this, he literally was quoted. Somebody asked him, like, "You're going to play hard?" He's like, "Man, it is what it is." I threw my hands up when I heard that quote. I was pissed. But then watching him, like, you saw the competitive nature of him trying to do that and things like that. That's why I think it's going to come.
Yep.
I hope it continues to go. I love the way he's trying and understanding that I need to get better. And this is the guy, when the knock on him in the draft was he doesn't care about basketball. Obviously he does, right? I think that's finally been disproven.
And I was against that when I heard that in the draft. Watching that guy at Georgia, that guy cared at Georgia. I mean, that guy at the end of games for a bad Georgia team was picking up the best player on opposing teams. I was like, this guy really cares. Like, the competitive will of this guy is off the charts. I was all in on Ant then, and I'm all in now. I love the Chalamet effect on this young generation of players, right? You heard Chalamet at the award ceremony talk about, hey, I want to be the best. I want to win all the awards and all these things. There was a moment there with our millennial.
Chalamet.
It's the Chalamet effect. It's that generation. They actually want. They're not afraid to want it. They're not afraid. And there's a whole generation of NBA players that were just too cool for school, right? Too cool for the All-Star break. Didn't want to do the dunk contest. You have guys like Wemby and Ant who aren't afraid to care. They're not too cool for school. And I love that. They're not afraid to say, you know what? No, I actually want to be great. I want this greatness. And they're not afraid to share that and voice it. It's the Chalamet stuff, man. It's the Chalamet effect.
I don't have any response to the Chalamet stuff. I don't.
We'll end the podcast.
I'm turning into an old man. This is me turning into an old man. Literally on the podcast. And I think I just got a few grays.
I think I just saw them
right
pop
as
up.
you were talking.
Yeah.
Definitely in the beard. Yeah, definitely in the beard. A few more popped up. I got to go shave.
I got Mo. They're coming in. I'm getting the wings here.
No, you want the wings. You want the silver, the sides.
Yeah, the wings don't stop. The wings keep going. The problem is it starts with the wings. I'm a new dad, and they always say that's when the hairs start going gray, and they're right. Mo Dakhil, thanks so much for jumping on, man.
No, thank you for having me.